We have an adversarial system where the prosecutor is trying to win and the defense attorney is trying to get justice for their client, innocent as they may be. I believe what we need is an inquisitorial system where everyone is searching for the truth.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Dr. Phil podcast. I am joined by my longtime good friend, Jason Flom. He is host of Wrongful Conviction, his podcast. I'm going to be talking about a case that he and I have worked on before for, gosh, I don't know how long we've been working on this. It is just absolutely disgusting when I think about it and disgusting where things are. It's a case that keeps me awake at night sometimes, and I'm really bothered that nothing has happened to change this case. In addition to having him here, we also have Justin Bonus, the lawyer that represents the man that we're talking about that is still languishing in jail, John Kinsel. I want to give a timeline and set this up so everybody understands it, because I'm afraid we're talking about it with too much understanding, and I don't want people to get lost here. So let me set the stage. In 1992, Adrian is 28, John's 23, and the daughter is 5 years old. They meet in January, and then in November, John moves in with Adrian and 3 children under 8. Now, they're not getting along well. They start fighting. And in 93, Alyssa is 6 years old. And in August, Adrian says she's suspicious that John is using drugs. In November, she caught him using, and she moves in with her father. But then in 94, Alyssa's now 7, and Adrian is pregnant with John's baby, correct?
Right.
And she moved out of her father's place, and then in June, the son was born, and they get back together in September. John moves in. So by now, Alyssa's 8 years old. Then in October, they break up again. So now, this has been from 92 to 95, across a 3-year period. But then in 96, Alyssa told Adrian that John touched her, and she told the school that John touched her. A detective arrives at the home, and in October, a doctor examines her. Now, in 97, she's 10 years old, and John gets charged with aggravated rape. He's arraigned, and Alyssa starts sessions with a child advocacy group. And in 98, John goes through the first of 2 trials, and both are mistrials. Then in August of 99, there's a 3rd trial, and he's convicted. Now, she moves to her family in Colorado. At this point, Alyssa is 18 years old, and she recants. She's old enough now to understand what that means. Did this man touch you?
No.
Did he rape you?
No.
Did he in any way violate you sexually?
No, sir.
Ever at any point?
No, never.
This is your first on-camera interview many, many years after. Why now? Why here?
There's only so much that you can live with. And John has a new attorney that is speaking for him and moving mountains that his old attorneys never would.
She, at this point, could face all kinds of blowback and, in fact, could face jail time, essentially. But she recants for the first time in 05, and we're now in 25. So for 20 years, she has been saying, it isn't true. It didn't happen. I lied. I was a child. I didn't like him. I didn't like him being there. I don't like him today. I still don't like him. but I can't live with my lie. I made this up. He shouldn't be in jail. Don't like him. Don't want to see him, but he didn't do this. Is that a fair statement, Justin and Jason? Did I recount this correctly?
I think you
Yes.
may have actually understated it, Phil, because even as far back as the time of the trial, she attempted to roll it back, but she wasn't allowed to, and she was threatened back then.
The prosecutor wouldn't let her do it, right?
She was compelled to do that under threat of going to kiddie jail, right? Really sinister when you think about it. And Dr. Phil, I'm with you. I mean, this case keeps me up at night because I hate these cases. I'm getting the chills thinking about it, where someone is serving time for a crime that never even happened. Like, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is the worst misuse of our resources and our, tax dollars and our, everything. It's ridiculous. Worse than ridiculous, because the very real consequences, as you said, Phil, not just to the victim, John Kinsel, who has been suffering now for almost 3 decades in some of the worst prisons imaginable, in the worst conditions imaginable, but also for her, these things leave a trail. I mean, she's had to live with this. And there's so many cases like this. Michael Haas, who served almost as much time in Virginia before he was finally freed. Again, for false accusation of a crime that never happened. And we have a list. We worked on Robert Robertson together, right? No crime was committed. Different situation, of course. No crime was committed. John Jones is in prison in Ohio. Similar situation. A shaken baby case where no crime was committed. Melissa Kalyazinski in Illinois. We could go on all day with this. I'd ask the audience to think for a second about what person, and John is a sane person, what sane person would possibly take a deal that's offered to them? You can go home right now. You just have to, we're not going to admit you're innocent. You don't have to necessarily say you were guilty. We'll offer you an Alford plea. Everyone, I think, that listens to your show knows what that is, but Justin can elaborate on it. And he's going, no, I'm no, thank you. I'll suffer here for the rest of my life rather than admit to something I didn't do. Who would do that? Any guilty person is taking the first train out of there. You know what I mean?
Justin, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and let you tell everybody who you are, what your involvement is in this case, and why you are so passionate about this.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be on with you, Dr. Phil, and a pleasure. My name is Justin Bonus. My background, my specialty is post-conviction work, which is pretty much anything that happens after someone is convicted, whether it's an appeal or what's called a post-conviction motion. And the difference between an appeal and a post-conviction motion, to make it quick and easy for everybody, is an appeal is what happens at the trial. There are legal issues on appeal. Post-conviction motions deal with issues that happen outside of the trial, like new evidence, changes in science, and things of that nature. So why I'm passionate about this case is I met John really because I started working on a Vincent Simmons case, who was also falsely accused of rape in Louisiana. And Vincent was exonerated on February 14th of 2022. And John Kinsel's family had heard of me, and they reached out. And I was introduced that way. And the first thing I noticed about this case is that, and this is the true rarity here, is that John was accused of raping his girlfriend's daughter, and his girlfriend's daughter had recanted, which recantations are always viewed skeptically, but it's almost never that you see a recantation happen in rape cases, like a full-blown recantation, where the victim here was not afraid of perjuring herself, not afraid of being accused of perjury, was even threatened with perjury by the DA's office in Louisiana. And so that is the initial piece of information that got me hooked. I read the whole record. And it's really interesting because at the time of the trial, the other thing that interests me about this case is, other than the fact that the victim recanted, is the fact that this individual, this young girl who was allegedly raped from the time she was about 6 to 9 years old, she showed no physical injuries whatsoever.
Struggling with foot, knee, or back pain? G-Defy shoes can change your life. G-Defy shoes are FTC approved to relieve pain caused by weight-bearing activities like walking, running, or prolonged standing. G-Defy absorbs harmful shock and returns energy to each step. This means better body alignment and improved biomechanics. Translation? Freedom to do what you love pain-free. G-Defy shoes have your back. Literally. They're a game changer for seniors and veterans who deserve comfort and support. Here's the deal. You can try G-Defy risk-free with a 60-day trial. And right now, listeners of this podcast get an exclusive offer, 50% off orders of $120 or more. Just text Dr. Phil to 91888. That's right. Half off shoes designed to improve your quality of life. So take control of your life. Text Dr. Phil to 91888 or visit gdefy.com today. It's time to feel good again because you deserve it. Feeling the pinch of medication shortages and rising prices? Well, you're not alone. When the pharmacy shelves are empty, it's a scary place to be. Benjamin Franklin said it best. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Your health is too important to leave to chance. That's why you need Jace Case. Jace Case is your lifesaver, an emergency supply of essential prescription medications that you order before you need them. When life throws a curveball, be it supply chain hiccups, natural disasters, or a closed doctor's office, you won't be left scrambling. Having these vital medications on hand gives you control over your health. In today's unpredictable world, that peace of mind is priceless. Take control. Be prepared with Jace Case. Just go to jace.com and enter promo PHIL at checkout. That's promo code PHIL at jase.com to have the right meds on hand the moment you need them.
At that time, around the time I picked this case up, which is about 2022, mid 2022, I had been looking at this phenomenon of prepubescent girls not showing any physical injury, but then saying that they were raped. Okay, and men being prosecuted even though the evidence did not support that this happened. And so John's case was one of those cases. And I said, how could this be? This is like a murder where no one died, okay? This is a very young girl, a child, prepubescent girl, who showed absolute no physical injuries after allegedly having been raped for years, over and over again. And so that is what really drew me to this case. And then I began to look into the science and the medical evidence, even as far back as John's conviction, which it was I don't want to say it was in its infancy, but there were studies and journals and things of that nature that supported the fact that John Kinsel could not have committed this crime because the crime actually did not happen. The only thing he was accused of was aggravated rape. So he was not accused of molestation. There was no allegations of that. It was just aggravated rape. So there had to be an actual rape of the victim in this case. So there's no evidence that there was a rape, but yet he was convicted based upon a doctor saying that the findings with regard to this very young girl were suggestive of a rape. So just suggestive. So I started to dig a little bit deeper, and as I dug deeper, the findings in 2018, I should be clear, as I dug deeper, the medical community, specifically with regard to pediatrics and trauma from sexual assault, had come to the conclusions that the findings in this case did not indicate a rape. So what the doctor testified to in 1999 was essentially false. Okay, so then I was introduced to a gynecologist, an actual surgeon whose name is Dr. Harrington, and he looked at this record and said that this is physically impossible. This girl was not raped. Her testimony was false. The doctor's testimony indicates that he actually had no real experience with this type of trauma, or at least diagnosing it, because he just essentially flew off the cuff and testified in a way that would support the state's case, and not testified to what the actual medical evidence is.
Yeah. Now, Justin, they've come to him and offered him what? You were talking about this right before we went on the air. Tell us when and what they said to him about getting out.
Well, they haven't said it to him yet. They said it to me, and it's to be honest with you, it's the judge, and the DA's office has essentially said to me, tell us what he would be willing to take in order to get out of jail. And I've gone to John twice now because it's my obligation as a lawyer. It's my ethical obligation as a lawyer. And he both times he's emphatically said, I'll take a new trial, and that's it. Which a new trial would be, I mean, they don't have a case. So a new trial would end up with him being exonerated. And the first time that I told the state that, they turned that down.
You mentioned an Alford plea, and an Alford plea, also known as a best interest plea, is a guilty plea where a defendant maintains their innocence, but they enter a guilty plea. They basically say, look, I say I'm innocent, but I'm going to give an Alford plea where I say you've probably got enough evidence to convict me. I maintain my innocence, but I'll take this Alford plea. I'm not going to say I did it, but I'll enter a guilty plea and I get to go home, essentially. And he's saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I didn't do it. I'm not going to take a guilty plea. He's saying, no, I'll sit here the rest of my life if I have to. I'm not going to say I did something I didn't do just to walk out of here.
He might say it in a way where he might be saying, I'm not going to allow you to say I did something that I didn't do. And I'd say, too, that I think an Alford plea is more of a situation where he's saying you may have enough evidence to convict me.
Right.
You're not really admitting, because they don't, but it's a sort of a Sophie's choice, and it's a very difficult choice, too, for someone who's been in for this long. Can you imagine how much they crave the freedom, just being able to hug a tree or hug a loved one or go to a restaurant or just even get up and take a walk around the block when they want to, or have a decent meal, or go to a anything, any kind of a place that has any sort of thing that's nourishing in some way, right? Be able to go to a ball game, whatever your thing is, go to church, anything you want when you want to. It's the biggest draw imaginable. Breathe free air, not be under threat of violence from whether it's other incarcerated men or guards and the horrendous food and all the deprivations and hardships that he's experiencing every day. And they're going, hey, you want this to end right now? Well, let me dangle this in front of you. And he's going, I mean, he's a strong man. He's going, no, thank you. I will sit here until you guys acknowledge what we have known all along, and what I believe they probably, in a quiet moment or maybe after a few drinks, they might admit that they've known all along, which is that no crime was committed here, but somebody wanted to get a conviction and wanted to put another sort of notch on their belt, right? And that's a sick thing. And Phil, I got to say too, kudos to you, because for your audience, when you say it keeps you up at night, what I know that your audience may not know is that you went to a hearing in the middle of nowhere in Louisiana for John and sat there in the audience. I mean, that must have been a hell of a thing for the people in that courtroom, but it's also a hell of a thing, for you to take your time and go to a very unglamorous type of a place and just be there to support.
Well, it was the least I could do. This man's been sitting there all of this time, and he was basically convicted, I think, on very weak medical testimony where this pediatric examination said that there were observed abnormalities that were suggestive, not definitive. If it had happened the way she said it happened initially, there wouldn't be suggestive abnormalities. If this had happened every day, where there was a sex act completed on a child of that age, there would be damage. There would be no question that this had actually taken place. And even the expert didn't say that. And there was evidence that as early as 2 years old, this child had just in exploring with crayons and that sort of thing may have actually created some abnormalities. But this wasn't the kind of thing where there would be any question if he had done what she said he had done. And he didn't have representation on his side of the case at the time because he wasn't someone that had the wherewithal to hire forensic experts to come in and do examinations and provide counter testimony on the defense side. That's one of the things that we want to do now. If we can get an expert to come in and do this examination, and there is an expert that weighs in on this, that can weigh in on this. Can you talk about that a little bit, Justin?
Yeah, yes, I can. And actually, Dr. Phil, what's more disturbing is John did hire a doctor that was going to testify to some of the studies that had been done prior to 1998. And the day I think it was the third trial, the day that the first trial was supposed to go on, the state requested a continuance. And John's lawyer had already paid for that doctor, did not have enough money to pay for the doctor again. And the judge actually granted John the ability to have the state pay for the doctor. The DA's office challenged that and got the judge reversed. So then John couldn't have a doctor called. Now we have doctors. We also have the medical community saying that the quote unquote abnormalities that were seen in Alyssa are also seen in newborn girls. So these are not abnormalities at all. They're completely normal findings. The medical community 100% would say that the doctor that testified in this case testified falsely. But now we have a gynecologist, a gynecologist that is a surgeon, and also a SANE nurse, which is a sex assault nurse examiner, who is also a doctor, who have now opined that the injuries that the victim would have had in this case would have been permanent, and she would have needed surgery after she was assaulted. I mean, it's just 100% that she would have had, if she had not have received surgery after she was assaulted, she would have lifelong injuries.
Having trouble taking your business to the next level? Financial Yield Solutions, Inc., or FYSI for short, provides tailored solutions for businesses generating $1 to $10 million annually. For tax planning, advertising, and retirement strategies to scaling operations, FYSI helps businesses thrive. With $500 billion raised for AI tech under the Trump administration, businesses cannot afford to be left behind. FYSI can even help you explore AI integration to cut costs and boost profits. With over 14 years of experience, FYSI specializes in solving the exact challenges business owners face. Business owners can book a free business review today to transform their operations, boost profits, and secure their financial future. Visit FYSI.com/Dr. Phil or call 800-877-4000. That's FYSI.com/Dr. Phil or call 800-877-4000. So people understand, I think a lot of people that have been viewers of mine over the years know that I spent a lot of my professional career in the litigation arena, and I can tell you that you'll go in for a hearing, a trial, and it's not unusual for something to come up and the judge to say, we're going to have to continue this for 2 days or till tomorrow or sometimes a week or whatever. And if you're a defendant and you've scraped together the money for a testifying expert, and maybe that expert is at Mass General or Miami or somewhere, you get the expert and they fly in. You have to pay for their time, round-trip airfare and lodging, and plus their time to be there. You do all that, then they get there and they go, oh, well, sorry, this is going to happen next Tuesday, not this Tuesday. Then they got to go home. Then you got to pay them again. And when they leave their practice or whatever, you have to pay for all of that. And then you have them come back. It could cost you anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000 to bring them back again. And so here he got the state to say, you've asked for a continuance, so you need to pay for our expert to come back. The court says yes, then they challenge it, so he can't have his expert again. It frustrates the hell out of me because prosecutors forget they're not paid to get convictions, they're paid to get justice. And if they're getting justice, then they should have a full hearing of all the evidence, all the experts, everybody on both sides, so somebody can understand exactly what happened on both sides. But that's not what they're after. They're not after justice, they're after a conviction. As Jason says, another notch in the belt. Let's mark this one down. Okay, so they go home with a win and they go to some bar and have a celebration. Yeah, we got a good conviction. We nailed this one. Yeah, but did you get justice? That's what you're paid to do. You work for the public. Did you get justice, or did you price a guy out of justice because you wouldn't let his expert get compensated and come back? And I think that's exactly what happened here. They priced him out and his expert can't come back. That should enrage everybody that's hearing it. That's prosecutorial abuse. They used their powers and persuaded the court and priced him out of having someone come in and testify as to the medical facts in this case. That's why I support him having a GoFundMe here to get the money to say to the court, no. They've set up a Give, Send, Go. I've got it up on the screen right now. It's givesendgo.com/free John Kinsel. What's the goal here? How much is he trying to raise so he gets a shot at justice after sitting in jail for 30-something years? How much does he need to raise here?
I mean, we're asking for $35,000, which is going to pay for, he needs 3 experts that are very pricey to prep and come down and stay in Louisiana and testify. At least it's going to be, each expert is going to be at least a day, which, as you know, Dr. Phil, could be 6 hours, and then there's no guarantee that John is brought to court on time, and Jason knows how these post-conviction hearings go because of producing defendants from the state. So these are pricey endeavors, especially post-conviction, because of the difference between post-conviction and trial is no one is in a rush in post-conviction to do these hearings because they've already been convicted. So you have you have to deal with the prosecutor's trial schedule, you have to deal with the court's trial schedule, and sometimes the court has issues that'll take precedence over these post-conviction hearings. It's hard. And then you have to deal with the fact that corrections, oftentimes in every state that I've ever been in, which is, I don't know, it's over half a dozen practicing post-conviction work, has issues with bringing defendants to court. Because it's not like they're coming from the county jail. They're coming from a state prison. And sometimes corrections just doesn't bring them, or sometimes they bring them at 2 o'clock in the afternoon instead of 9 o'clock in the morning. So, I mean, this is you need to have a war chest, so to speak. It's really unfortunate, which John did not have at trial. It was, in my opinion, gamesmanship what happened at trial. It absolutely is true. It was prosecutorial misconduct. It absolutely was. They bled him out essentially in order for him not to be able to defend himself. Okay, they stretched him thin, and that's what happened. We're not going to let that happen here.
And it's sad, Phil, because he was somebody who I think, like many people in your audience, was expecting that he would go to trial and his nightmare would be over. They'd see the truth. He was a law-abiding guy, and there was no crime committed. And I believe they would have seen the truth had these games not been played, and had he had a fair shot and had an expert. And now I look at it as $35,000 is what's the price of a life, right? And the life that, the lives that it'll touch, his relatives, his loved ones that he'll be able to be with, see his grandchildren, like play sports or whatever they do, go to their ballet, whatever they do, right? Karate, I don't know what they do, but whatever it is, he has every right to go and be a part of that family, his family. And 35,000, I want to put that in context. I mean, if we can save this man's life, and let him live out his days, in some degree of peace, that I would say that's the best money that could ever be spent. Now, it's also worth noting that Justin has been working on this case for years now, pro bono, right? So he's getting nothing out of this. You and I are getting nothing out of this. All we want, and our satisfaction and joy, is going to come from I'll be at that prison when he comes home. We'll walk him out together.
Oh,
I hope
betcha.
you'll join us there. And we'll be part of helping him get back into society and with whatever he may need. So, I think we all should want the scales of justice, as you said, to be tipped back in some kind of a fair way. And we can do that here for a small price. I mean, 35,000, that's what a used car. You can't even get a used car these days for that, right? So, I mean, if people can find it in their hearts, the give, send, go, by the way, if people aren't familiar, is used for legal, for cases, and you can't do this on GoFundMe. People may say, why isn't it GoFundMe? Well, give, send, go is the alternative that is the go-to for people who want to raise money for causes like this one. And I want to say too, Dr. Phil, this case, on top of the fact that we need these experts and we need to give him the fair shake that he was denied, however many years ago, decades ago that was. But let us also not forget that this should have never happened, because her mother had admitted from day one that she was a liar from the time she was a little kid. Some kids lie a lot, right? And that's part of growing up, and you learn that it's not right to do it, whatever. So her mom didn't think it made sense from the beginning. And then when the story evolved and she started changing the story, saying certain things happened at this person's house, that person's house, grandpa's house, the authorities never went to those places, never interviewed those people, never bothered to really look into it to find out, was there any truth to the story? And as the story kept changing and morphing and turning into different things, and it was inconsistent throughout, not only didn't they didn't care, but let's not forget that they went to the mother and said, if you don't toe the line here, if you don't stop trying to, put some doubt into this process, we're going to take your other kids away. And that's not uncommon, unfortunately. That's a threat that they use in these cases to get somebody who's trying to do the right thing in this case, and often it is someone who's trying to do the right thing, to go along with their narrative that at some point, again, I have to say, I have to believe they must have known was a false narrative. And that's sickening. And last thing I'll say on this, Dr. Phil, is I believe, like I think you do, that we have an adversarial system where the prosecutor's trying to win and the defense attorney is trying to get justice for their client, innocent as they may be. And I believe what we need is an inquisitorial system where everyone is searching for the truth. And if we did, then these people would have access to experts. And as you said, Dr. Phil, if the trial has to be moved, then the government should be on the hook to say, okay, we're going to pay for this expert. We're going to level the playing field a little bit. It's never going to be even because the government has unlimited resources that they can devote to these things. And, you've got whatever you can, as you said, whatever you can scrape up.
Well, the thing that bothers me is we know that even the judge said at the time of the hearing, and this is a quote from the trial record, the judge said, "All I can say is you are the court's worst nightmare." I'm not sure I believe her about whether it happened or not, but I don't know at which time I'm supposed to believe her. I find that in no way can one convict absent her testimony. That is testimony that she has recanted. Here's your sworn statement, recanted statement on October 20th, 2005. Question, what brought this statement forward? Alyssa, my mom and I had gotten into an argument one day. I remember so many details during the trial, and now those details I can't even remember, not even a quarter of them. And the ones that I do remember, they don't make sense. Like me saying that he raped me numerous times at my grandfather's house. I slept in bed with my grandma most nights and on the other side of the house from him. There was no way for him to get to me. There were 10 people living in the house. She's breaking this down and saying, this couldn't even have happened commonsensically. She's explaining even the geography of the house, the people around. She's saying this couldn't have happened. She said that nobody pressured her to come forward with this. She said straight up, John never raped, oral, anal, touched inappropriately. She says the prosecution pressured her testimony. She didn't want to testify. She said she can't remember it happening, so how can I say that it happened? How do you keep a man in jail for this long when there's no physical evidence of the crime happening? The person it supposedly happened to says it didn't happen and puts herself in jeopardy to make it clear that it didn't happen. In the United States of America, if you deprive someone of their freedom, that comes at a very high standard, as well it should. If you're going to take somebody off the street and put them in a cage for the rest of their lives, the standard is that it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, to me, that means that 12 people go in a room and they look at the facts and there is not anything there about which 12 people could reasonably disagree. It's just very clear that there's nothing here to disagree about. It's obvious. And that just simply is not the case here. You've got somebody that is coming back and saying, look, I know what I said, but I was not telling the truth. You have very, let's just say, unclear medical testimony, and you've got a supposed victim who says no crime was committed. Then you have a prosecutor who says, I don't want the court to bring in an expert to opine on this. I don't want an expert to give their empirically backed opinion about what took place or didn't take place. I do not want that to become part of the record. Leave this man in jail. I've got a problem with that. I'm sorry. I've got a problem with that.
Yeah, I wanted to quote from the Fifth Circuit of the United States also. The quote from the Fifth Circuit of the United States about the victim here is, it is beyond regrettable that this is a Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals judge, federal judge. It is beyond regrettable that a possibly innocent man will not receive a new trial in the face of preposterously unreliable testimony of the victim and sole eyewitness to the crime for which he was convicted. That is a federal judge saying that about
from the most conservative court in the country, by the way, right?
Yes.
That's the most conservative
Yes.
circuit court in the country. I think Phil would agree. And I wanted to say too, Dr. Phil, it's so great that you're doing this. And for the audience, I will tell you, there is no joy that I know of that exceeds the joy of helping an innocent people walk out the gates of a prison. And whether you're going to take the $5 you might have spent on a nice coffee drink or, something greater that you can afford, I will maintain that you will feel, if you haven't been a part of something like this before, you should feel a part of this. And I hope you'll follow along with the case and that you'll feel a sense of that same joy when John Kinsel walks out. Because if we can raise this money, he will walk out. I mean, Justin is a street fighter, and he has won case after case of innocent guys and women. I think I don't know if you've had any women just don't commit as many crimes, so there aren't as many cases to work on, not even close. But so Justin, I don't know if you've had those. But he has helped many innocent people come home, and he does it on a shoestring. He does it out of the goodness of his heart. He's, as I said, he's not getting paid for this. And I implore you, if you've got a few bucks or $100 or $1,000 to spare, you won't find a more gratifying, you won't find a better feeling than watching this good and decent and innocent man. And again, this is not a man who was a career criminal who had done other things. And if he had been, he didn't deserve this. But this is a guy who was just a regular guy like anybody else, who got caught up in a lie that just grew and fed upon itself, and then was helped along by people who should have known better. And it makes us all sick. And so we're so grateful for anybody who can afford to support this effort. Let's raise this $35,000, and let's get this guy home.
Well, listen, I've just got a few minutes left here and I have to stop, but let me have the final word and finish by saying this. I have dealt with people that have been guilty of this crime. If I thought for a second that this man was guilty of this, I would say that they should put his ass under the jail and throw away the key. I have no compunction whatsoever of locking up somebody that has done the things that he was initially accused of putting him in jail and throwing away the key. No question about it. Jason, you know that I don't get behind these cases until I have done a deep dive. I got to study them. I got to look them in the eye. I got to know what's going on. I can't get behind them if I don't 100% believe in them completely. And you're right. I did go down there. I did sit in that courtroom. I did meet and look at and talk to everybody involved in this. And we're not asking for this man to be turned loose. He just needs a new trial. Personally, I would take the key, unlock him, and drive him home. I think he deserves to be let go. I don't think he should go through a new trial. I think he should be exonerated and sent home. I don't think he needed to spend one day in jail. And I can't tell you how many times over 20 plus years I've worked with stepfathers of rebellious teens or tweens where I've said to them, let me tell you something, buddy, you need to get out of there right now. You're here with this young girl. You shouldn't even go home on the same airplane. You should not live another night in the house with this child because you are in jeopardy. If they make an allegation against you, you could go down hard and wind up in prison. Don't you even go home with these people. You need to get out right now. You are in jeopardy. I wish I had met him and could have said it to him, but sadly I did not. Let's set it straight now. Somebody has overreached in this case. You've got someone that has recanted, and I understand sometimes recantations happen for other reasons. They feel guilty. Somebody else leans on them. That's not the case here. She is stuck with this for 20 plus years, and she doesn't even like him. This is a miscarriage of justice. And please, if you can help get an expert in here to support this, and you can give a few bucks to help, do so. I'm contributing my time and money, and these two men here are working tirelessly to do this. So please, you will give yourself a gift if you help this man walk out. I support him. I believe in him. And Jason, thank you for the work you do. We've worked on a lot of cases together. We've sweated down to 11:59 p.m. and hoped that we got relief. And I just believe this is one of those cases that it needs to happen. And Justin Bonus, thank you for what you're doing in this case. We're going to work until we get this man where he belongs, and that's home. Thank you both, and I plead to my viewers to help out here, and we'll have a link on the Dr. Phil podcast. It'll be on drphil.com. It'll be on meritstreetmedia.com. There will be links everywhere you can click and just give a few bucks any way that you can. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And gentlemen, thank both of you.
Thank you, Dr. Bill. I'm going to join you in donating, and let's get this done. We can do this. It's so close. I can feel it. We're going to get this man home.
I hope so. Justin, thanks for what you do.
I want to say thank you to both of you for your time, money, efforts, and I really appreciate the opportunity to put John on this type of platform, because it's imperative that people understand that this goes on.
Well, let's the three of us stay in touch on this every step of the way, and let's get him home.
Thank you.
All right,
We'll do.
Thank you so much.
I'll do it.
All right. Thanks, guys.